Hello, everybody. I'm back. This is the fifth, right? Showing two hands. It's not 10, not 10. Fifth. This is the fifth episode of the Mechanics of Money, right? So I appreciate everybody that's tuned in and is giving me support thus far. It's been really great. It's been a wonderful adventure. Let's go ahead and get the formalities out the way. I have to read this. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Always consult a licensed professional before making investment decisions, and these are strictly my opinion, and please verify the validity of what I say. And then and I wanna kind of back that up as well. If I say something, I encourage you to look it up. Look it up and see if it's true. A lot of things you're going to hear might kind of set you back a little bit, right? So you might say to yourself, "Is this true?" Then just look it up. Look it up. I pride myself in the fact that a lot of this information you're not going to hear on the news. Now, this is no slight against the news, but the news only has a certain time frame where they can get as much news out as possible. But in this particular case in the podcast, I can cover in depth a lot of these issues that are poignant to the economy and consumers and alike. So, first order of business, I want to send a shout out to my wife and my daughter, my lovely wife and my daughter. I'm very proud of my daughter. She's starting to drive. Knock on wood. Knock on wood. Okay, So I'm starting to let go a little bit. I'm starting to let go. So she's doing really good. We've been going driving and everything, and she's doing really well. So it's wonderful to watch your children grow up. Okay, so I want to also send a message out to my mother. My mother's been ill lately, and I want to let her know that I love her and I appreciate all she's done for me. And I hope that she recovers soon. And I hope to see her soon. And then lastly, I want to send out. I promised one of my colleagues that I would send a shout out to him. I want to send a shout out to Jenna with the Elite Resource Group, and also Joe with Elite Resource Group, and his company's name is Joe's company's name is Retire Safety First. Okay, so Joe, I sent you a shout out. Jenna, I sent you a shout out. So now let's talk about the next phase, right? So basically, we're going to go over the 3 T's, right? So what are the 3 T's? Okay, for those in the back that don't know what the 3 T's are, the 3 T's are the taxes, the tools, and the truth, right? Last week we went over the taxes and the truth with the big beautiful bill. This week we're going to go over the tools and the truth, right? So the tools would be the indicators and all the information, the percentages and all the information and analysis that allows you to look at the economy and make an informed decision. So I'm giving you the tools, right? And then I'm giving you the truth, which would be the truth as I see it, right? My opinion, right? People may differ with me, but I can support my opinion with facts. That's the beautiful part of it, right? So what we're going to go over today, what we're going to go over today is firing, closures, the economy, China, and indicators, recommendations, and AMC and GME. Okay, so let's go on to the final point that I wanted to make on this segment. And the gentleman that you see to my right over here, his name is Doug Seafood, right? So he is the CEO, or was rather, he was the CEO of Virtue, right? Apparently, he got caught misappropriating $400 million from a pension fund. And this is proven through a class action suit that was filed by the Iron Workers Local Number 55, right? So he was summarily, and when we say misappropriated, what are we talking about, right? well, let's not mince words. When you say misappropriate, it's another word for stealing, right? So apparently this gentleman was caught misappropriating, i.e., stealing um, money from the pension fund, and he was let go. How about that, right? And this is a major hedge fund. You have Virtue, you have Citadel, and a couple of other major hedge funds. But this is one of the biggest ones, Virtue and Citadel, right? And the other ones. So apparently last year, one of the major investors in Virtue wanted to put Virtue up for sale, right? The name of the group was Pullet Group, right? And they're a major investor in the firm in Virtue, and they said they were considering a possible sale because they said it would unlock the true potential of Virtue Financial. Apparently, the sale never went through, but one has to wonder why they were considering selling, right? Was it their financial position? We don't know. We don't know. Okay, so that's just about it. Okay, now we're gonna go over what I call the B Swim report. Now I got the B Swim report's name. It's kind of interesting. I got it from Warren Buffett, right? Warren Buffett made a quote one time in reference to how shorts hedge funds get exposed. The people who run Ponzi schemes. It says only when a market correction happens, and he made it akin to the shore drawing back, right? Similar to like a tsunami, right? When a tsunami comes, the water draws back. And what you see when you draw back, sometimes you see ancient civilizations, you see all kind of stuff, right? So Warren Buffett, ancient civilizations have been covered with the water, because the water's being actually drawn out to sea, and a big tsunami, a big wave is coming out. It's a key indicator that something big is getting ready to happen, right? So that's why Warren Buffett talked about that. And I thought that was interesting because he said it's only when the water draws out do you actually see these people that run these Ponzi schemes. And what he's talking about is the liquidity. The liquidity. Once the liquidity leaves the market, right, with these market corrections, it's only when the next shoe drops, right, when you actually see the criminality of what people do, right? So that's why I called it the B Swim report, because when the market correction happens, that's when we're going to actually see some of the problems with some of the banks and the hedge funds. We'll find out who is over leveraged, who is creating synthetic shares. We'll find out what's going on with payment for order flow and all that good stuff. Okay, so let's go on to the chart. And these people are going to be left naked when the water is drawn out, right? They'll be exposed. The B Swim report. So now we're going to talk about the market correction and recession indicator dashboard. And this is a small snippet of some key indicators that have already triggered, that already gone off, and the list is getting longer and longer, right? So we're going to go and talk about CEOs have already indicated with the CEO confidence index that that a pandemic, approaching pandemic, it's down to 42.2. All right, so CEO's confidence in the market is going down substantially. That's what it means. Okay, and then also a consumer sentiment index, right? Is the sentiment is 63.1, and the sentiment remains depressed. Of course, we have the VIX, right? The VIX, which measures volatility in the market. It's a slight inverse, and front end spikes imply near term fear. So people are starting to fear what's going on in the market, right? They're starting to see some things that they don't like. They see that retail purchasing is starting to slow down. Liquidity. Next, we have the fear and greed report, and that is yellow, right? And these other indicators I just mentioned are actually red, right? The red. The fear and greed index is sitting at 34, which puts us, it's slipping for the neutral position, and now it's in fear. So the majority of people in the stock market are in the fear position. They're afraid of what's going to happen next, right? Is Trump going to force Powell to drop the interest rate to zero? We don't know. We don't know what's going on right now. Then we have the 10-year Treasury yield inversion. So this is actually inverted. and this is the key recession indicator. When the 10-year treasury yield inverts, it means that a pending recession or market correction is coming, and that is proven out through the years. Through the charts, right? Every time, 2008 it inverted, so that's what we got. So it's still inverted. It's negative 42 basis points, the longest inversion since 1980. So that's how long the 10-year treasury yield has inverted, since 1980. And then we have the market breadth report, and it shows that the signals breakdown beneath it. It shows the signal breakdown beneath the surface. So the market breadth report shows that the majority, even though this is quite interesting, because I had a conversation with one of my friends no more than about an hour ago, right? We were just talking about it, and he was telling me, he said, Dyron, I don't understand why you're saying that the market is we're facing impending market correction or recession. But the thing is that when you look at the market breadth report clearly states that the majority of stocks are actually selling off, right? So in essence, we are in a crash right now, right? And you can look at that report and see what it means. The last time the market breadth report was at 50, negative 50, there was a recession and there was a correction. There, of course, we have the Hindenburg Omen indicator, which also triggered, and it's been multiple triggers within the last 10 days, right? Within the last 10 days. And then we have the Titanic indicator. And in that particular case, it's showing that when this indicator triggers, it also shows that an impending recession or correction is coming. Okay, so now we're going to go over the second page of the B-SWIM report. Okay, this particular page, we're going to talk about the liquidity and pressure radar, right? So on that, we have a lot of interesting things. We have, of all things, the reverse repo facility, right? The place where banks or where hedge funds go and get money overnight. And this went from, believe it or not, the utilization of this money of the reverse repo facility, at some point this was $2 trillion, right? And it's dwindled down to 150 billion. That's how much money has been used of the $2 trillion has been used up. And now we have a quantitative, what the Fed calls the quantitative tightening, where we had quantitative easing initially, where they were actually giving out the $2 trillion. Now the Fed is in a position now that's saying, hey, there's no more free lunch. We're not going to give out any more money. So now we have quantitative tightening, right? So they're tightening, they're stopping from giving out as much money. And now it went from 2 trillion to 150 billion, right? So now we're seeing a case where liquidity is drying up, right? Which is not good for the banks and it's not good for the hedge funds. Next, we have the SOFR, right? And this is similar to the reverse repo, but this is where banks actually get some money as well. And there's some tightening. There's an elevated tight fund environment persisting right now, right? Which is currently at 5.33%. Then we have the Bank Term Funding Program, otherwise known as the BTFP, right? Which is at 152 billion. Still being tapped, and signals hidden. It's sending hidden signals that there is stress in the banking sector, right? And then, which is most interesting, is the credit default swaps, right? We have that, the credit spreads, and they are higher. They're at 32%, right? And these are the keys. If you want to know when we're going to have a recession, or when the next shoe is going to drop, or when the market's going to crash, you're going to see accelerated increase in the credit spreads, right? the the credit default spreads, credit default swap spreads, right? You're going to see an increase in that. Then we have the OIS Treasury spread, which is uh, plus 11 basis points. It's early sign of interbank stress. And then, of course, we have Citadel Europe, which was liquidated, right? So we're we're starting to read the tea leaves, and we're starting to see signs of stress in the market now. It'll be really interesting. Let's keep our eye on the reverse repo and see if it stays at 150 billion or even less. I know the banks and the hedge funds will definitely be in trouble if it starts going any much lower than 150 billion, right? So let's see if it shoots up uh, significantly in the interim. Okay, we're moving on to the third BSWIM report page, where we're going to go over the credit and default watch, right? The next indicator we're going to go over is the hedge fund short activity. It's in yellow. It's a warning. The short activity is very high uh, in terms of corporate downgrades. 32 downgrades in July. How about that, right? Junk bond spreads are widening. The CRE default trends, um, that is in um, that is in a warning situation. It's red. So BlackRock, in particular, BlackRock has seen a lot of delinquencies. I know a lot about this. I've been looking at this and researching this. Uh, it's the delinquencies in a lot of properties that commercial properties of not BlackRock, Blackstone, excuse me, Blackstone owns. That Blackstone it's gotten so bad that either their tenants cannot pay their rent, or there's a lot of vacancies, right? So really what you have here, and you can look this up, Blackstone is it's gotten so bad. Blackstone is actually walking away from $1 million properties, understanding they're never going to recoup that money. So they're just walking away from it and letting it default, right? You can see the office spaces, they have 23% vacancies in commercial properties now. Let's take a little auto loan defaults. They're up 4.3% delinquencies we have right now, which is a post uh, great financial crisis high, right? This is a high percentage similar to what we saw right before the great financial crisis. Credit card defaults are also going up too. They're at 6.1%. They've risen to 6.1%, which is also sending off warning flares too, which is indicated in red. Okay, this is the fourth page of the BSWIM report. This is the final page that I'm gonna talk about with the BSWIM report. We're gonna go over consumer stress and macro fundamentals. So this particular page is interesting too, because what we have here is, let's take a look at the personal savings rate. The personal saving rate is at a critical low, right? Consumers are not being able to save that much money, right? Um, Also, a consumer's credit is surging because a lot of consumers are now leaning on credit because they don't have any more personal savings, right? Let's take a look at the PMI report for manufacturing. It's been a contraction over the 10th straight month, so it's definitely been a contraction. It's currently at 47.2. Let's look at the services as relate to PMI, and it's slipping in the contraction zone as well. Restaurant traffic is down by 8%. There's been a considerable retail pullback, and retail foot traffic, which is key right now. How much are consumers actually going and buying stuff in the mall, right? So there's a confirmed decline in decline of foot traffic in malls right now. Matter of fact, I heard Gucci is really suffering right now. Their sales are plummeted. Okay, so let's go on to the corporate financial position report, right? We're going to take a look at it. I'm not going to go over everything. You can basically pause and read a lot of this stuff, but let's take it from the top. Citigroup has cut 30,000 jobs. How about that? Wells Fargo cut 11,000 positions. In the meantime, people are saying, hey, um the S&P 500 is hitting record highs. Yeah, but what about this, right? What about this stuff, right? Major closings. Macy's is closing 150 stores. Um, Family Dollar is closing 975 stores. Walgreens is closing 150, right? And these are major stores. These are major corporations that are closing. Red Lobster is filed for Chapter 11. How about that, right? Um, Grew up on Red Lobster, right? So Express just the clothing store Express just filed for Chapter 11, and Inspire Brands quietly offloaded, closed multiple Arby's, right, and Dunkin' Donuts locations. We actually had some closings where I live. Okay, so now we're going to go over the China and U.S. overview. Okay, so let's talk about China a little bit. China is very quite interesting because China, of course, is part of the global economy. But China's situation, it might be a contagion that might spread all over the economy. We are in a global economy. So um, when China gets sick, then all the other countries catch a cold, right? We're not isolated, right? We're in a global economy. So what we've seen is that China's economy is really suffering right now. The housing market, due to Evergrande collapsing, a lot of apartment complexes over there are sitting vacant, right? Because of the bankruptcy of Evergrande, right? And which is sad because a lot of the Chinese consumers have saved their life savings and they saved up to finance these particular homes. So you can imagine how the calamity it is that they realize that they'll never realize their dreams of owning a home because Evergrande went bankrupt, right? So a lot of what you see, and you can look this up, what you'll see is a whole bunch of vacant apartments that China has resolved to actually destroy. So not only do they have a chance of maybe rebuilding later, they actually destroyed these apartment complexes. Now, the people in China were so upset that they actually kidnapped, and you can look this up, they kidnapped the CEO of Evergrande. He is actually currently in jail right now. Okay. So what's happening is that China has pumped $3 trillion into their economy, but it's still not working. $3 trillion US dollars, right? They initially pumped like a 1.3, and then they promised another additional totaling up to about $3 trillion. But the problem is that of course you have the powers of supply and demand. Demand is falling too fast, and the PBOC that is trying to pump money into the economy cannot keep up with the fall at the rate the fall demand that demand is falling. Okay, so let's take a look at what's going on with car payments. Right, consumers have stopped making their payments on their cars. This is worse. This is the worst since 2009. Nearly 20% of new car loans have a monthly payment that exceed $1,000. How about that, right? 20% of borrowers have opted for an 84-month car loan. How about that? And as a result of in financing, the average finance cost of a car is $42,000. Um, so, in terms of Warren Buffett has sold a 1 billion stake in Citigroup, and also Jamie Dimon, the CEO of J.P. Morgan, has sold 31.5 million in some bank holdings of matter of fact of J.P. Morgan. he sold shares in J.P. Morgan. So the next thing we're going to discuss is reciprocal tariffs. So with reciprocal tariffs, we're going to talk about what's going on with the current situation with tariffs right now, right? Um, what's happening is that copper, with the tariffs, there's been a 50% increase on copper. Okay, so with that 50% increase on copper, when we make the product and then we export the product, there's going to be a tariff on that product that has copper. So what that's called is a reciprocal tariff. And what we've learned is that of the money that we've been getting back from tariffs that the Trump promised us, it's primarily U.S. citizens that are actually paying these tariffs. So that's why they have the term of reciprocal tariffs. We are putting tariffs on other countries, but it's coming back on us because we have to end up paying higher prices when we export our products over to the other country. Okay, now it's time for final thoughts, right? Now it's time for reflection. Let's first. I want to get this out the way. My website is, if you're interested in my company, some of my ideas. I also have a blog. It's called The Ledger of Life on my website. My website is https:// www.taxman.today. My email is dyronbush@taxman.today. If you need tax advice, any bookkeeping, any type of estate planning, I've done some of that as well. So you let me know what you need, and I see what I can do. I advise CEOs, so I'm very adept at dealing with high-end problems. Okay, so let's talk about the quote of the day. Now, the quote of the day, I like very philosophical. I like quotes, and this is one of them, right? So this is dealing with China's situation, right? Again, if China is sick, then everybody else has a cold. We got to remember we live in a global economy, right? So we're not, even though we're trying to be protectionist in the sense that we have tariffs. But remember, I was talking about the definition of reciprocal tariffs, right? So that basically, even though we put tariffs out, we put tariffs on copper. Copper went up 50%, but yet we ended up paying in the end because when we export the product, there's actually a tariff on that as well, right? And then most of the money that we have gained from the tariffs are from U.S. citizens, right? And you can look that up as well. Okay, so here's the quote. Evergrande's legal collapse kicked in early 2024, but real damage unfolded over the next 4 months. By autumn 2025, we'll know if it contains strategic failure in failure or China's Lehman moment, right? So what does that all mean? What that means is that China, Evergrande, if everybody's familiar with the Evergrande, was a major real estate company, right? And it's very interesting with in China with their culture, they save up money, right? They save up money to buy a house, so they finance it as they go, right? And ultimately, what happened is that Evergrande went bankrupt. Okay. And what you have here, and you can look this up, what you have here is Evergrande had a lot of vacant buildings because they couldn't finish building it. Yeah. So you can imagine that you put your life savings in to have a home or apartment, and now it's all gone. The money's gone. Can you imagine that? Somebody tell you that your money's just gone. The company misappropriated your funds, and you will no longer have a home, right? So the government even went as far as to extinguish any chance for some people to even have the home, because even though the building sat there on the guise that maybe somebody could take over the project and the construction and finish building, but because those buildings were just sitting there vacant, the government just destroyed them, right? So all chances were not. You had no chance to actually get in your home because your home was destroyed, right? So the Chinese people were so distraught over what happened at Evergrande, they actually held the CEO hostage, right? This is true. This is true. Held him hostage, and the CEO is currently in jail right now, right? So here we go. So I guess we have to wonder if this is going to be China's Lehman moment, right? I think China's just now feeling the ills of what happened, of the collapse of Evergrande, right? Evergrande was a very big commercial real estate company. So let's talk about the bottom line. No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't absolutely collapsed overnight. But you're right to ask. The next 5 months are going to offer decisive clarity. Watch for the waterfall and legal ruling, buyer boycotts, asset sales, and policy responses. Right. So now we're going to talk about the clear signs, right, of a collapse. And again, when we talk about a collapse, I want to be clear on this, right? Because a lot of people might scoff. I get this all the time. I talked to one of my friends earlier today and said, "Well, Dyron, how is the market going to collapse if the S&P 500 is at 6,500 or whatever it is, right? It's really high, right? And it's keep going, it's keep hitting record highs, right? But basically, what goes up comes down, right? The market goes up in cycles, right? We know by the Warren Buffett indicator that it's overvalued. We know that already, right? We know by the market. If you look at the market breadth report indicator, you know that most stocks in the stock market are selling off. So we're in a crash right now. We're currently in a crash, right? So for somebody to say, well, hey, the market's doing well, yeah, the market's doing well, but it's only seven really major stocks that are holding up the economy right now as we speak, and that's true. You can look that up as well. So the majority of the stock market is selling off, and everybody's rejoicing that the stock market is hitting record highs, but nobody's really understanding the undercurrent of what's going on, right? They don't understand that most of the stocks in the stock market are selling off right now. They don't understand that we are actually in a recession right now. They changed the calculation for recession. So we're actually in a recession right now, So we're gonna take a look at the clear signs. You know, just because I say that we're in a recession, the market's going to crash, it doesn't mean that the market's not doing good. If I push this point all the time, if I'm a day trader, right? If I'm a day trader, I don't care what's happening 6 months from now, right? I care what's happening 5 minutes from now, right? Because that's what's important to me. I want to make a profit, right? And it doesn't mean you can't do both. It doesn't mean that you can't make a profit and still recognize that we are in a recession. We're going in a recession, and we're currently going through a market collapse right now, right? So it doesn't mean that the two are mutually exclusive. It means that the two things are happening at the same time, which is quite interesting right now. So what we have is probably within the next 2 to 6 months, we'll start seeing indications, right? That we should start seeing clear signs, indications that things are, not going as well as we thought it was, right? Probably by the fourth quarter of 2025, the October, November, we'll likely see big asset write-downs, major buyer hesitancy, fire sales across multiple companies. So if you're aiming for 5 months, you could be very well catch a critical readout between August and October 2025, right? So for those who say, hey, the market is doing well, yeah, the market's doing well, but there's other things you need to look at. The dollar right now, the U.S. dollar is at its lowest level since 1973. The U.S. dollar, right? I mean, right now the prevailing currency right now is the brick, not the U.S. dollar, right? So that's concerning, right? I mean, that speaks nothing to the S&P 500 hitting record highs. That is very concerning, right? These are real statistics. Hours worked. That there on hours worked, the average hours worked are going down, right? It's in recession levels right now, right? The average weekly earnings are going down on recession levels. All these things can be looked up, So, lastly, we'll talk about some of the indicators is GME and AMC, right? And these, of course, are the meme stocks, and everybody probably knows them by now, right? But the thing is that when the correction happens, these are going to be probably the first stocks as the margin calls come in and liquidity dries up. These are going to be the first stocks that you're going to see the effects of it, right? You're going to see GME start shooting up. You'll see AMC going up. Some of these other meme stocks are going to go up as well because the hedge funds are shorting these stocks, right? And they're shorting them and holding down the price of the stock, right? So once the hedge funds are called a margin call on their collateral because liquidity is drying up and we're in the middle of a correction, then you're going to see these things happen in these meme stocks. And just to show you how the hedge funds are trying to control the price of these meme stocks, just the other day, July 29th, GME was traded 76% of GME shares were traded in the dark pool, right? Which is sacrosanct to the laws of supply and demand, right? How could this even happen, right? Also, AMC, 50% of AMC stock was traded in the dark pool as well. Again, we're having the laws of supply and demand being usurped, right? We know that AMC and GME's float, their float is at a fixed level, but yet what we know there's synthetic shares out there or fake shares out there because if you look at the total amount of the float and you look at the FTDs, right, the failure delivers are going to be, if you add them all up, are more than the float. So how is that happening? And that's happening because they're trying to manipulate the stock and keep the price of AMC and GME down. Because last time uh, AMC and GME squeezed, it shot through the roof, and we almost had a market collapse then. So that's my final word, and you have a nice day, and I enjoyed talking to you.